Peace be with you.
Peace be with you.
Here we are again with spiritual politics, and we don't have any specific topic today to discuss, so I'm just going to begin by asking Carol, my good wife and spiritual guide, please tell us, why are you interested in spiritual politics?
Well, good morning. It's almost afternoon, and I just want to thank anybody who's still awake in Pakistan. Allan has assured me that most of Pakistan is still awake. We hope that you have the energy because their load shedding does exist. So, hello. Salam alaikum. So Allan asked me, why do I have an interest in spiritual politics? I think it arises from being invited to partake in a spiritual life. Since I was a very young child, I had a deep affinity for the nature that surrounded me. My mother cultivated flowers, and she taught me the names of many of them. I loved to climb up into the apricot tree, and where our house was in East Palo Alto, where Facebook is right now, but adjacent to the San Francisco Baylands. And so my brother and I would go out and play in the mud. We were just, I thought, typical children that loved to follow our imagination and have it wander wherever it would go, and have nature, the natural world. Many people, many adults, I'm sure, can remember your childhood of playing in the sand or the mud or the water or the ocean or the lakes or all of those things. So that was wonderful for me. So I also had parents that were squabbling all the time, and it was very, very difficult. And so I would retreat into dark places and begin to meditate. And I began meditating as early as probably 6. I was very precocious. I have to say that when I was 5 years old, I couldn't take the squabbling, so I actually packed up a paper sack with what I thought I needed the most, and I left my parents' home completely convinced that I could take care of myself.
How old were you then?
I was 5 years old, and I had complete security over the natural world. And yes, my father did find me and my brother, because I took him along with him. So this kind of inward security led me to develop the inner landscapes, and I would sit inside the closet and meditate all day for as long as I could until developing this center. I just naturally went to this center. I was able to produce beautiful sights and colors and patterns, and I would sit mesmerized by them for hours until my father took off the closet doors and was pulling me out of the closet. So that was difficult. Then Go ahead.
I wanted to ask, so you said took off the closet. Do you mean he opened the closet door and pulled you out, or he actually took the closet door off the hinges of the
He
closet?
took the closet door off the hinges. He thought there was probably a big problem with his daughter that would prefer the silence and the small dark spaces at, I guess it was 6 and 7 when that began. So, unbeknownst to me, concentrating on this center had produced spontaneous experiences where I would then, I remember when I was riding my bicycle, I felt a downpouring of energies coming down through the top of my head, and I felt just incredible sense of peace. And I believed then as a child that I had been chosen for a different life. And so as I went through the educational system, I never became very drawn to pursuing education in that manner. What I did feel drawn to was to be a healer of people's ailments. And so I spent most of my life doing, placing my hands on people and helping and joining my heart with their condition and opening up that situation to these spirits, these energies that felt so peaceful and invigorating and very, very healing, and being a helper in this way for the person that I felt was destined to meet me. I never went out to pursue this healing talent to say that this is something I can do for you. This was not a method for me. I just had word of mouth and was in situations where people actually came to me. So also during those times, I would meditate on experiencing love. So I wanted to know, what is love? What is love? What is love? So I think for anybody living a very ordinary life, that question may come to you as well. How can we be living in a world right now at large where fear propaganda is so enormous that we almost become a slave to it, that we feel that we're a victim to the fear propaganda? And so that would make me wonder, is it possible that we could actually live in peace? And does love exist? So I had asked myself that question, and I asked it in such a way that I began to meditate on experiencing love the way that my Creator, our Creator, would want to have me experience this sense of love. And it was quite profound, actually. I don't know if it was so much of a sense of love, but I was then able to see how incredibly connected we are in a very, very fine energetic web of light. There is a very, very fine energetic web of light that connects all of us. And the only way that you can, any ordinary person like myself, because I did think myself to be that way, and no one was instructing me. It all came from within me. That once I did experience this very fine crystal-like web of life, and that that everything that in the material world actually vibrates this very fine energetic light, and that it's all connected.
So you actually saw this?
Yes, I did. And I came to realize that if it was something that I could see, that it was actually happening inside my body. And so I am self-contained. And that self-containment helped me to be very secure and connected with my creator source. So as a result of that, I felt that that this was what it means for me to live a spiritual life. For I had not been introduced to religions, but I had gone directly to the source of all the religions.
So, do you mind if I change the subject a little bit?
Sure.
You've been talking about spiritual life and spiritual experience. What about politics? How did this develop into an interest in spiritual politics?
Well, I didn't really find myself any different from any politician. In fact, I ran for politics. And I realized that in running for politics, that even though I knew nothing about it, that my presence, or the presence of the secure relationship that I have with the creator source, was the one that was doing it all anyway, and that all I had to do was just show up and listen. So I
just want to clarify this. So you said you ran for politics. You mean you ran for political office?
Yes.
Or as they say in Pakistan, you stood for political office?
I stood for political office in the United States.
So
yes,
I did. What office was that?
Congresswoman. So I thought, well, even though I know nothing about politics, well, I think most of the politicians that are in office know nothing about politics, nor do they know anything about love, or they don't know anything about God. So I felt right then and there that I was in an advanced position.
So this is amazing. You had no political understanding or political experience, but you felt internally, you felt some guidance or some calling that you should run for Congress of the United States.
Yes, I did. And if I had planned it, I probably would have not done it, because I didn't have a car and I did not get my name on the ballot. But I had over 300 people remember my name. I managed to get to the different towns in the district and talk to them. So since I had a life of placing my hands on people and in order to alleviate pain and suffering, I knew that basically we are all the same, that all human beings suffer. And I could relate to their suffering, because at one time my own personal suffering had been so great that I ended up going to the desert for about 8 years. And I was there by myself in nature, walking. It was very difficult to walk, and I prayed for 8 years, and I did not want to live such a solitary life. And then God brought Allan to me. Remember?
Yes, that was quite an amazing experience for me too. I was here living in Northern California, and I heard about a conference in New Mexico about, well, it was a star knowledge conference organized by Native American spiritual leaders. So I was interested in finding out more about Native American spirituality and also about star knowledge. So I went to the conference, and when I arrived there, I was very exhausted. It was like a long drive, but I felt like I heard a voice in me telling, "Don't go to sleep now." I had arrived and checked into the conference in the hotel, and I was about to go to sleep when I heard a voice saying, "Don't go to sleep now. Go down to the main conference hall." So I said, "Okay." So I went down, and there were two women playing drums and singing, and one of them was this woman here. So that's how we met.
I would play my drum under the stars. It was about 3,000 feet up, and at night I would sing to my creator, and I would do that often, and I would play so strong. And I saw many wonderful things when I was living out there in the desert, and I highly recommend it for any person who feels that they have a religious, spiritual calling, to spend time in the desert contemplating yourself and why you are here, why were you born where you were born, what is the deeper relationship that you have with your parents. And as a result, I am able to have sensitivities that many people don't, have not developed.
So anyway, going to that evening when we met, you were playing the drum and singing, and I was just captured by the spiritual potency of that music and that singing and that drumming. And then you invited me to join in, and I did, and we went on singing and chanting and playing drums, and you gave me a rattle first to play, then a drum, and a number of other people joined. I don't know, 15 or 20 people finally, and it was very, very deep, ecstatic spiritual experience, one of the deepest spiritual experiences of my life. And so that was the spirituality that captured me, and not only the spirituality, but but I'm still trying to understand how this turned into spiritual politics for you, because you said you did run for the Congress of the United States, and how did that then develop into the sort of interest that you have now in, I guess it's changing the world, or what are you? Why are you interested in spiritual politics now? What is your purpose?
Well, I would say that I um, I am aware of what is possible for one human being to experience uh, experience the life that the prophets have given us through uh, their own lives and their own books, and the way they see uh, how humans can be uh, much more helpful to one another than they are right now. I mean, it's a slow movement, but we're reaching a very critical time, and because of the changing weather. And that's why I am suggesting that our leaders speak to you in a spiritual way, as because people of different faiths are living in the same village. And uh, for me, that is to communicate through your heart and to be vulnerable and to speak of what you are able to do and unable to do, because they're both valid. If somebody says that I am not able to do this, then it stirs the heart of the listener into direct action.
All right, so when you're talking about spiritual politics, we haven't discussed this before, by the way. I had no idea this is what you were going to say or what questions would come up in my mind, but it seems to me that you're talking about uh, affecting other people's hearts and changing other people's attitudes, or because you're talking about the leaders, the political leaders should become spiritual. That's what will solve the problems of the world. So,
Well, we either want to experience some love or fear. And right now, the fear propaganda has become somewhat of an addictive cycle that is propagated by media, and um, and also those who are unable to say, "I need your help," or so the conversation had arose this morning when we got up and were talking about India, and that India's the gurus of India have when they came to the West, they had influenced the people in the West, the Americans, uh, towards a spiritual life more than a Hindu life, because I really uh, don't feel that the yoga movement proselytizes its students to become Hindu, but to become have healthier bodies. And so that's one good benefit from the Hindu faith, is to practice a healthy lifestyle through yoga. But here, many articles have been written that it's not about becoming or worshiping as a Hindu. It is becoming a better person and having a healthy body, so that the life that you do have here on earth can be one of service and productivity. And we need a healthy body for that. So I'm trying to think, why is there conversations around being afraid of Hindus or being afraid of Muslims?
all right, so we're talking a little now more getting towards the political dimension, because the last two conversations we had in this spiritual politics show were about Kashmir specifically. So, of course, we were talking about how India and Pakistan have had this conflict going on for more than 70 years now, and is there any way to solve it? And we both are convinced that the only way to solve it is by spiritual politics. So I was interested in this sort of idea, even as a child, because as I've explained before, I was a resident of Pakistan from 1947 till 1965. My parents were working there, but I went to school in India because there was an American missionary school. My parents were missionaries. So I went back and forth between India and Pakistan every year, and I saw that there were very, very different, even opposite ideas and attitudes towards things. So I developed, even as a child, the desire to try to resolve this sort of conflict and misunderstanding that I saw between countries and between religions. So gradually this developed into a sort of spiritual mission. That is, when I wrote a paper as a high school student about the Kashmir issue, and my conclusion was, as I was explaining last night when we were with Rihan Alawala in Oakland, talking about Kashmir in India and Pakistan, I explained that I wrote this paper and I concluded that there's no way to resolve this issue. That India thinks that Kashmir is part of India and must be part of India in order to affirm its identity as a place where people of all religions can live together, whereas Pakistan feels that Kashmir must be part of Pakistan in order to affirm Pakistan's identity as a Muslim state, and Kashmir is a majority Muslim area. So my conclusion was, in that paper that I wrote when I was only 17 years old, I think, was that India cannot give up Kashmir and Pakistan cannot give up Kashmir, so there's no solution. So, but then I realized about 20 years ago now, even more than 20 years ago, there is a spiritual solution to the Kashmir conflict. And I've described this before. I was just yesterday also and the day before talking about this spiritual solution, which is that, of course, the real basis is that people must understand that we're all one family. Indians should not think of themselves as Indians first, but as human beings. Pakistanis should not think of themselves as Pakistanis, but as human beings, as servants of the same God. So we're all members of the same family. That's the first spiritual foundation of a successful solution, not only of the Kashmir problem, but of all the problems that the world is facing. It is the recognition that humanity is one race and one family. When we realize that, then we can move to the next step, which is that Kashmir is also a people. The Kashmiris are also a people. So they are also our brothers and sisters. The Pakistanis and the Indians both should understand that the Kashmiris are also a people who have their lives and their rights and their ideas. So India and Pakistan both with this understanding must be willing to give the Kashmiri people the right to rule their own lives. They must be given autonomy internally. That is, within Kashmir, the Kashmiri people should be allowed to run their own lives without outside interference. And as far as the external affairs of Kashmir go, they should be run by India and Pakistan jointly. So this love and trust, a spiritual foundation, is necessary. And what it really means is that the Kashmiri people would remain Kashmiris first, but they would also be Indians and they would also be Pakistanis, literally. Kashmiris would be citizens of both India and Pakistan. So this is kind of an amazing idea to some people when you first hear about it, but this is actually a spiritual solution. And it's practical also, because there's no reason why Kashmiri people cannot vote in the national elections of India and have parliament members from Kashmir in an Indian parliament, and at the same time have parliamentary elections to vote for and elect members of the Kashmiri people to be in the Pakistani parliament. So this is really what I've always understood to be the spiritual solution, that has always means for the last 20-some years, the spiritual solution to the Kashmir conflict. So
I believe that this matter can be resolved within each individual. And so that means you would have to ask yourself, what part of me is holding me back from loving another person as myself? Because I know that there are many religious Hindus that don't feel that way, just as there are Muslim people who do not feel that way. So we really cannot address those people here. We can only make a suggestion. Do you feel more comfortable feeling secure in fear or in love? And what does love mean to you? And what is love for you? So if you were to even dwell on that question alone sincerely, I believe that you will have that answer arise, as it did for me, within yourself. I cannot speak for Kashmiri people, and I'm not here to solve this issue. I am here only to suggest to you that because I have experienced some profound awakenings in consciousness, that it is very well, it's possible for you to also experience a profound awakening conscious too. And I know definitely I'm not the only one over here in the West, because there are many, many people who are giving workshops and classes and they charge quite a bit of money for it, and it's actually very free. Consciousness is free, and it does not. It has a beautiful platform that includes everyone, always and all the time. And yes, you're right when you say, we are human beings, but still we live with people who have not reached that place. So if you are able to sincerely ask yourself, what is love, and what does love mean? Because love is the premise of spiritual politics, and it was what the prophets had professed while they were on earth. And if you have ever had an opportunity to meet somebody who loved you so deeply, it can feel very unsettling, because we as humans feel that we have not been conditioned to receive love. We have been more conditioned through fear propaganda to hate other people. And because of the way that the world politicians are creating a slave condition and a victimized condition in the world, the solution for that is love. And the more that people understand the experience of the inward experience of love, and the inward experience of self-respect, it becomes transmuted into spiritual direct action. And this is why I know that it's possible to have spiritual leaders. I mean, the people of the major religions are yearning and hoping for their avatars, their prophets, to return. And I believe that the condition upon which that these prophets will return is for the individual themselves to make their inward life a very fertile, beautiful place. And don't we want to do that when there is someone that we care for and they're coming into our home? We want to give them the best food and the best of all conversations, and even ask them to heal our bodies. So it is quite possible that you can heal your body by dwelling on this question, what is love, such as I had experienced it with myself.
All right, I think we can bring this to a conclusion now, because I think
Well,
what you just said.
I wanted to talk about this, so
Oh, okay.
I want to thank you for making us live, because many people don't understand, who am I and what am I about, and I felt that it would be good for you to know why I have a sense of where this knowing comes from regarding spiritual politics.
All right, anyway, I really liked what you just said about love, that really the root of spiritual politics and the root of all successful politics really is in love, and engendering love, creating love, developing love, nurturing love between different people. And that's the solution, really. Ultimately, the solution to the Kashmir problem can only be when there is love and trust between the people of India and Pakistan and Kashmir.
And within themselves as a people. I mean, here in the West, I think that we would be appalled if India were to withhold love from Pakistan, because I really see that Pakistan is a country that wants to open more their hearts to all people. I mean, Pakistanis are living everywhere in the world right now, and I'm certain that they are vital elements in their communities. So, as you said, first, we are humans, and having human experiences here. And we also have a great gift that was brought to us by the prophets to magnify, to be like them as an example. So we are here in California, and when we come to Pakistan, it will be because everything, Allah has made it possible for us to come with money. We don't ask for money. One time we did. It was disastrous. So if we receive money to come and it's a good timing, then we would come to Pakistan. But I feel that what we are doing here, guiding and helping and sharing spiritual thoughts and discussing spiritual politics, is very healthy for all of us.
All right. So, do you want to look at any questions, or do you think we've said enough?
I think we've said enough. We want to thank you for listening, and to forgive me because I'm not accustomed to talking live. So, thank you.
So thank you all very much. And we will plan to come to Pakistan when we can, because I did see that there were several questions about that. We don't know when that will be, but we are praying that that will happen. We are looking forward to it, because there's so many people in Pakistan that love us and we love them. And we hope that this love will expand more and more, and that it will influence politics, because there's so much corruption in politics now, but that corruption needs to be replaced by love, and that will solve all of our problems.
So I don't know if it matters, but I am not an academic. I am not a very well educated, and everything that I have learned about myself, I have learned through meditation and direct experience. And I have spent my life and my livelihood helping to alleviate the suffering of other people through my hands. And it was not something that I had planned to do. I was led to practice healing. And as a result, I began to be supplied with a way to advise other people around the world, and this has given me some confidence to speak about spiritual politics. I have spoken with world leaders and offered advice, and so I have experience with that.
All right. Well, thank you everyone very, very much. We're planning to continue this spiritual politics show, and this was a very interesting for me also. We hadn't planned what we were going to say. We just said, okay, we'll begin. And but I think this is a very, very important point, which we will conclude with, that spiritual politics is based on love, and that's what we really need. And that will come, inshallah, in Pakistan and all the way around, all around the world.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.